Now, this step is also quite important because of the fact that a lot of the common mistakes that get made is that a lot of students, particularly that I see who write, will use description too much. Now, obviously, you want to be fleshing out your description, especially with, as I was saying before, you're trying to write in a small sort of scene. You need to keep your action very, very limited in order to really express it and develop it in such a way where people can get the ideas that you're trying to say and to get your suggestive sort of meaning. Obviously, doing it too much is going to be a problem. Now, you need to focus on setting boundaries for this, and you need to focus on making your description significant. In other words, you're being very selective of your detail. If I was to use the image on my right here for an example, then you've got a person there who, if I was to describe them in my story, I wouldn't focus on describing every bit of it from her head to toe, knowing every little small detail about her, because it's not important and it's not going to really get any point across. What I would do is I would focus on just describing the sorts of things that need to be said, so whoever is reading my work can have a rough imagining of her and what she looks like. So I would say that she is a girl in Victorian costume with bun-like hair and a long flowing dress. That's basically all I need to do. Who is a little ugly, I've got to say. I wouldn't focus on describing her eyes and the chin and the mouth and everything else about her character, because that's not really going to add to my story. And so that is what I mean by setting boundaries and making your detail significant. Is yes, it's all well and good to be able to elaborate on those things, but you need to be very selective. So you need to write the important details, leave out description for the sake of description. I'm not going to describe her for the sake of it. So sentencing. What I mean by sentencing is that you need to make sure that your sentences essentially follow a moderate sort of line, and that your sentences don't always go long and flowing and they're not always too short, but have a nice variety of sentences that you're able to communicate in very short bursts if it's something that really needs to be written in a short sentence, and then develop your description over longer lines. I'll explain this a bit further. So bad sentencing can disrupt your flow. Now what I mean by that is, if you think about how stories are written, if you've got very, very short sentences the whole way through, you're going to be stopping all the time. And if you have big long sentences that go for 5 lines each, you're never going to breathe. So if you have a look at that image to the right there, that would be someone reading a very, very long-winded sentences. And that if I was to speak without breathing, and that's what you're doing by writing a 5-line sentence, is to say that I'm not having a half breath or even anything else like that. I'm just not going to breathe the entire time. So if I was to read it aloud, it would be really hard to do. This is what I mean by flow, and actually making sure that your sentences are appropriate length for what it is you're trying to do. So a very short statement, you would write a short sentence. If you're describing something with depth and description, you would use a longer sentence. So you need to choose the length of your sentences depending on what you're trying to say in each one. Too many sentences that are too long or too short will severely, as I said, impact the effect of your story. It's just not going to get your point across as well. It may still get your point across, but not as well. You get this through editing and reading it aloud. That is, if you have to stop all the time, maybe join some sentences together. If you find yourself being out of breath, then you need to add some more full stops and break up your sentences a little bit more. That is a great thing to do when you're practicing. And once you've got that sort of style in your head where you can read it aloud almost in your head, and you can work out where your full stops need to go, it becomes much easier. And it certainly becomes much easier for someone who's reading it. Because I know if I'm reading someone's work and I have to stop all the time, or I have to try and keep up with a very, very long sentence, it annoys me quite a lot. And particularly when I'm trying to mark it and trying to work out what you're trying to say, I get lost, or I just simply get frustrated having to stop all the time. It's just one of those things that's really important to get right.